Ruby Franke was a YouTube star, a mom who put herself, her family, and her parenting techniques on the internet for the world to see on her 8 Passengers channel. And millions watched. She gained many fans, but as her popularity grew, so did her number of critics who did not agree with her controversial parenting skills. Then, her YouTube channel disappeared, and then drama surrounding her family blew up. The status of her marriage came into question, and her children started growing up into adulthood. Then things got drastically real for Ruby as she was arrested on child abuse charges. Tonight, we take a look at the rise and fall of Ruby Franke and take a closer look at Jodi Hildebrandt, who was Ruby's business partner and has also been charged with abusing Ruby's children, as we investigate the shocking world of Ruby Franke.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. This is one of those stories where you sit and you wonder, how did it end up where it ended up? Like, how did we get here? Why did we get here? From the outside, it doesn't make sense, but as you dive into the story, maybe it will make some sense tonight. So let's do a little bit of a timeline here. Let's go back to 2015, because this is when it all really began for Ruby Franke. Starts blowing up on YouTube with videos of her family. They have a name for the channel, 8 Passengers. It's her husband, and their 6 children. And the videos really focus a lot on the lives of the children, like intimate things and the way they're being parented. But if you look back on that channel, which has been taken down subsequently, the videos that got the most views were the ones involving things happening in the lives of the children. So there's this rise and doing really well. And when you do really well on YouTube as a mom-fluencer, you can generate a lot of income, especially when you have more than 1 million subscribers, millions of views on your videos that you're posting. That stuff becomes monetized, plus other deals you can cut with sponsors, maybe for products or things that you want to put out onto to your followers. So this was a business, but it was also very personal because it was her family, her children, who were being placed out there for the world to see. You move ahead to about 2020, that's when things started getting very rough, and that's when I say the haters arrive, right? These are the critics. And I'm not saying that they're wrong for hating what she's doing, but from going from being beloved and popular, now you're getting all these people are saying, wait a minute, what is she doing? There's something wrong with this family. And she's being called out. And for some of these behaviors and things that are being displayed in the videos of her family, the videos of her children. So the YouTube thing runs its cycle and seems to disintegrate at that point. She makes a connection with a group called Connections. And this is interesting. This is where there's a real turn. YouTube is gone now. Now she connects with Connections. And I think she began this relationship with this woman, Jodi Hildebrandt, from Connections, to counsel her and her husband about their marriage, because that's what Connections apparently is about. It's life coaching, it's a whole bunch of things, but dealing with couples and issues. And as a couple, they go there, but then she disconnects from her husband, and they're living separately. And it's at that point where she now takes the kids who are still young that are living with him and apparently moves the kids into Jodi Hildebrandt's house, and then becomes part of this whole company and this counseling. And to me, it's not 100% clear exactly what the nature of the relationship was. It seems like they're doing podcasts, and Jodi had this company, and now she's one of the people working with this Connections. But beyond that, like, she's living there as well, as are the children. And that's when things went really, really bad, like south. Like this is when it became news here at Court TV. Take a listen to the 911 call made by one of Jodi Hildebrandt's neighbors. And remember, at this point, Ruby has taken her children and moved in to Jodi's house. Let's listen.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Okay. Is your door locked?
No, I'm sitting outside with him on the front patio.
Okay, cool.
And he asked us to call the police.
What's
So
his
he's
name?
very afraid.
Are the neighbors out of their home, or is anybody looking for them that you can see?
No. Our homes are far enough away. I'm not sure. How did you get out of the house?
Porch. He went out.
He says he just left through the porch at the neighbor's house. Her name is Jodi Hildebrandt, and she lives 2 doors up the street.
Out here in Cayenne, the houses are apart.
Yeah, out here in Cayenne, the houses are far apart, so he walked just under a block to get to our house. He rang my doorbell and asked me to call the police.
Does he seem to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
I don't think so, but he's very thirsty, and
Need an ambulance?
I don't think he needs an ambulance. I'll let the cops decide that, but his ankles are taped up, and he won't tell us why.
Okay.
But he has duct taped around each ankle. Yeah, there's sores around them. I think there's a good chance he's been...
He also said...
Oh, and he has been around his ankles. I mean, his wrists as well. Okay, this boy has been... This kid has obviously been... I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Is his
Yeah, we're getting...
area?
Is your mom around here? Have you seen her lately?
No.
He doesn't know where she is right now.
Does he know his mom's name?
What's your mom's name? Ruby Franke? Ruby Franke is his mom's name.
Okay. Can you ask him if any other children were in the home he came from?
Okay. Was there any other kids up at Jodi's house? 10 and 14, and they're still at this house.
Are they tied up as well?
What's the deal with? Are they being held? Do they have wounds on them as well?
Nothing bad going on with them.
Okay.
It's just
Okay. So they're able to walk around the house and everything. Well, okay. He says everything's fine with them. Grain of salt.
Okay.
He says what's happened to him is his fault. Is Jodi up there right now?
Yes.
Okay. Jodi Hildebrandt is up there right now.
Okay.
So she may come looking for him here soon, but he's not gonna, obviously. I think we need the cops here as soon as possible.
I'm just asking where he is now.
Yeah, she's a bad lady. We didn't realize how bad.
Those words really stuck out to me in that call. She's a bad lady. We just didn't know how bad of a lady she was. Talking about Jodi Hildebrandt. So let's bring in our guests. We have an incredible panel that'll give us great insight into all of this. Joining us in Salt Lake City, Utah, host of the Mormon Series podcast. Dr. John Dehlin is with us. Also in Salt Lake City, whistleblower for Boy Scouts child abuse scandal and former client of Jodi Hildebrandt, Adam Steed, is with us. And in Los Angeles, California, senior reporter for DailyMail.com, Caitlin Becker. Thank you to all of you. Adam, I'd like to begin with you because you had a lot of contact with Jodi Hildebrandt in that house. We heard the neighbor describe her as a bad lady. We just didn't know how bad. What was your contact with her? Why did you see her, and what transpired there?
So that's a fantastic question. To really answer that question, I have to explain to you that I am under restraints on what I can and can't say by the courts in Utah. They say it's to protect the parties involved. I think it's to protect themselves from letting Jodi Hildebrandt do these things for a very long time under their watch, especially the 4th District Court in Provo, Utah. And also, there were large, high-up church leaders involved in facilitating Jodi Hildebrandt. And the Honor Code Office at BYU, there's 500 pages of damning subpoenaed records showing their stuff. And I was just silenced by the same court from speaking, so I need to refer as parties involved. And so could go ahead and answer your question again.
Sure.
Or ask your question to me again.
Give us an idea of the nature of why you went to see Jodi Hildebrandt, and what sort of things happened when you were, I guess, being counseled by her.
Yeah. I had just finished changing the sexual abuse laws in Idaho that allowed victims to come forward against the Boy Scouts of America, Mormon Church, anything kind of cover-ups. And then I went down to Utah. I was at that point, I was already nationally renowned for changing laws. And then my church leaders asked me to go to Jodi Hildebrandt. And I think she was an inside man for the Mormon Church to destroy people. She had a mind game that was incredible. It completely destroyed me as a person. I can't go into the details here. I've been asked by every main streaming network that watched Mormon podcasts to do documentaries, long form on it. And the same district court that is horrifically damning when we open it up has sealed it and said that I can't talk about it. I can't even talk about the joint therapy or anything like that. But they didn't stop me from talking. They didn't say specifically the therapy with Jodi that wasn't joint. So I can talk about that.
Okay. And you said you had a terrible experience. In what way?
Yeah.
Hey, Vinny.
Jodi lured us in, treating us kind and fun, and then she came out with these radical ideas. She used the peer pressure of entire groups and all parties involved to destroy your soul, to try to convince you that crazy wrong ideas were correct. And then just suddenly, before you realized it, it was like being a fish and biting a hook. She had you in so deep that you were, you were fighting for your life to try to get away from her, and all parties, the safety of all parties involved, and there was nothing you could do but get your life destroyed. Her ability to separate people is incredible. Her ability to manipulate their own religious beliefs against themselves, absolutely profound. I was listening to a guy that said something on a TikTok about her, and it just shocked my mind because it's exactly how it was. She would get a guy with a successful business career that if he did a double look at a woman, to hit that man so scared of himself and all parties involved so scared of that man that he would move out of his home, lose everything, be destroyed by his church. It was just insane. This lady, the thing is, these people knew there were enough clients that were Jodi Hildebrandts that went through the 4th District Court in the most crazy, weirdest divorces ever. Under her guise and her cooperation and her work, there were so many people whose lives were damned by her these leaders all knew what Jodi was doing, and right now they've sealed court hearings. They've said it's for the good of parties involved, that no one knows about what's happened.
Well, I'll tell you what, though,
as a
Adam,
member of parties involved.
Yeah, at this point now she's charged criminally, so I think some things may change here. Dr. John DeLynn, go ahead. You wanted to jump in here.
Yeah, sorry. Fortunately, I'm not under the same protective order that Adam is, and because I have interviewed Adam for my podcast, I can just tell you things he can't tell you, and that's that Jodi counseled Adam and his wife, and basically did her best to destroy their marriage by alienating Adam, by putting into Adam's ex-wife's mind that Adam was a bad person, that he was abusive to his children, which there's no evidence that he was, that Adam's ex-wife should cut him off, cut off any intimacy, emotional or physical, and basically drive him first out of the bed and out of the bedroom, and then eventually out of the house. And that wasn't good enough. Jodi Hildebrandt convinced Adam's ex-wife to go after him in court and make false accusations against him that basically wrecked his life for many, many years. But it went beyond that, because then Jodi Hildebrandt contacted Brigham Young University, where Adam was attending, and got him basically kicked out of the university, violating all the ethics of what a therapist should do. And I should note, because I've personally corresponded with dozens and dozens of victims of Jodi Hildebrandt, that the hook was the Mormon Church teaches that masturbation's evil. And so there are many Mormon couples where throughout their marriage, it's discovered that the husband might occasionally masturbate. And I'm talking about once a week, once every 3 weeks. In Adam's case and in others, Jodi Hildebrandt would use that as a wedge between husband and wife, teaching the wife that that the husband was an addict. And when I say addict, I mean maybe he would masturbate once every 3 weeks, once every 4 weeks, maybe once a week. But in Jodi Hildebrandt's mind, she was able to monetize this idea of sexual addiction and sexual shame, use it to divide husbands from wives, and eventually convince the wives not just to kick the husbands out of the house for the sin of, occasional masturbation, but then pursue them in court, make false accusations against them, and then destroy their lives. That's what Jodi Hildebrandt did to Adam, by my understanding, and to dozens and dozens of people that I've personally interacted with over the past several years.
And was that sort of the basis of this connections? I mean,
yeah.
To me, this is mind blowing when you think about it. Like, let's do this. Let's. For Ruby Franke to move into this house, like what's going on in this house? Caitlin Becker, I'll go to you first. What is going on inside this house? It seems like she has a business where she brings in couples and then figures out a way to separate them and make money, because she's claiming that someone's got an addiction problem to whatever, some sort of sexual addiction. Caitlin, what are your thoughts about what was going on in this house and the introduction of children in there?
Well, Vinny, it was actually the opposite of that to begin with. Ruby Franke's story is very similar to the stories that we're hearing right now from Adam about his experience and similar experiences with other people in Connections. Ruby had met with Jodi through Connections, and based on our Daily Mail exclusive interviews that we have done with Kevin Franke's sisters, they told us basically the same thing, that Jodi actually moved into Ruby's home and immediately separated Ruby and Kevin, to the point where Kevin was living on one side of the home and Ruby was living on the other side of the home. And Jodi was there allegedly facilitating this therapy between them inside of the house with the family, with the children. Kevin Franke's sisters have described Connections as a cult and said that they had a very rigid set of rules that were very extreme, and that if Kevin violated one of them, he was essentially punished. The withholding of intimacy, and particularly sexual intimacy, from what I understand, was very frequently used through Connections. And then Ruby's relationship with Jodi grew more and more from that. And then once 8 Passengers was shut down, Ruby began appearing on Jodi's Connections YouTube and podcasts, and then suddenly they start working together. And from our reporting, we understand that Ruby frequently would leave home weeks at a time to go essentially live with Jodi temporarily, and that's what I believe was happening when the 2 children were found in that alleged emaciated state.
Unreal. All right, Adam, I know there's more you want to tell us. We're just going to take a quick break right now. Everyone's staying with us as tonight we try to peel back the layers of what on earth was happening in the life of Ruby Franke, what happened to the children, and who is this woman, Jodi Hildebrandt? We're going to talk about that, plus coming up next hour.
In Tallahassee, Florida, it's the start of the trial of the alleged mastermind of the murder of FSU law professor Dan Markell. Did dentist Charlie Adelson order the hit on his ex-brother-in-law, who was in a bitter custody battle with his sister, Wendy Adelson? Tonight, we are live from Tallahassee, taking a look at the witness list.
My son, Dan's life was cut very short, and I have been forced to experience the unthinkable.
There's a tragic outcome in this case.
Civil trial that is the focus of the Netflix documentary Take Care of Maya.
How a misdiagnosis tore their family apart.
They continue to accuse Jack and Beata of being child abusers.
Jack called me and said Beata just hung herself.
Is the hospital they're suing responsible for what happened?
The Take Care of Maya trial. Trial coverage weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
There is truth, and there is reality, and there's one truth. There's one reality. All of us are living in the reality, and if that's uncomfortable for you, you will either sit in the pain and acknowledge and validate that this is painful. This reality is, it is breaking my heart. It is not, I don't like this. I want something and I don't get to have it, and okay. And you're surrendered to the reality, or you're going to go running away. And no one wants to go running away a coward. And so they create a story as they run away that justifies why they're running away from reality. And all of those reasons, all of those stories for running away are tactics of deception.
51 seconds of gobbledygook from the so-called moms of truth on Instagram. That was Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke. Jodi was kind of just sitting next to her, and then Ruby was doing all the talking there. They're both charged now with abusing Ruby's children in Jodi's house. Incredible guests still with us. We've got Dr. John DeLynn, host of the Mormon Stories podcast. We've got Adam Steed, who had interaction and alleged counseling from Jodi Hildebrandt. We've got Caitlin Becker, DailyMail.com senior reporter, and Dr. Carol Lieberman is now joining us as well. Forensic psychiatrist, trial expert witness, and body language expert. Adam, I want to go back to you. I know you wanted to jump in there on what was happening. I don't understand. And so people would go to Connections, go to Hildebrandt for help as couples, and then couples would go there and they'd be immediately separated, and people would be villainized and think like that's not counseling. I don't know what you call that.
Yeah, so you got to understand, Jodi wasn't like working with like a radicalized group of Mormons. She was just working with the righteous Mormons, like the ones that wanted to be temple worthy, to go to the temple, have an eternal family. And that's like the main group of Mormons. So everybody that was like a main group of Mormon could qualify for counseling from Jodi Hildebrandt. And you got to understand too, I wasn't just one of her patients. I was the only person that stood up against her that I knew of that got her license removed and through Doppel. And that she just couldn't live down she had this perfect harmonic methodology, complex methodology of manipulating the hell out of everybody, from the day, from a bishop to a person that the bishop sends to her, to the day when all of the custody is taken away from a father and he's branded a sexual predator for the rest of his life. She had the thing so fine-tuned and so fine-tuned. The evidence we have on this lady's astounding, and there's no way that the 4th District Court didn't know what was going on with this lady. They accompanied her, they helped her, the Honor Code office helped her do her witch hunting of people she was targeting, and in incredible ways, just bizarre ways, massive, huge. Jodi Hildebrandt is a huge cover-up for the Mormon Church. So she was deeply involved.
Dr. John Dehlin, but before, I just don't want to run out of time, Adam. I hate cutting you off. I'm just trying to bounce around because I have limited time tonight, but we're going to do this again for sure. Dr. John Dehlin, how deep was this? Like Adam saying that this is like what sort of numbers and what was her reputation? What's her background? Like, where did she come from? Like, how does she get in this position to do damage like she did?
Yeah, well, Vinny, you said you didn't know what to call, what Jodi was doing. I have a word for it. She was a grifter. It was a racket. The people that I've talked to report that Jodi was charging between $2,000 and $4,000 a month to these married couples. She would force them into individual therapy, couples therapy, group therapy. These groups were often not moderated by licensed professionals. And the most toxic part about it was that these couples and these grandparents, parents of couples, were almost mortgaging their house to save their kids from, quote, sex addiction. And Jodi was laughing all the way to the bank, pocketing that money, building her $3.1 million house in Ivins, Utah.
Oh, whoa. One more time with that?
She had a $3.1 million home in Ivins, Utah, as I think I've read.
Wow.
Super wealthy. And she was just basically taking the Mormon Church's toxic messages about sexual shame, calling everything sexual addiction. If you masturbated once a year, according to Jodi Hildebrandt, you were a sex addict. And then she would basically terrorize you by saying, you won't go to heaven, you won't go to heaven with your family unless you see me and go through my program, pay me $2,000 to $4,000 a month. And I was fortunate enough to interview her niece, Jodi Hildebrandt, on my podcast. And Jesse was terrorized similarly to Ruby Franke's own children, including duct tape over her mouth, including being locked up. Jodi Hildebrandt prevented her teenage niece from having tampons because Jodi told Jesse, her niece, that she was afraid she would use them to masturbate. That's how paranoid and abusive and toxic Jodi Hildebrandt was. So, but the most disturbing thing of all is that she was one of the most recommended therapists by the Mormon Church to active, faithful members of the church all throughout Utah. So she was on the church's short list both before and after Adam courageously had her license removed. The Mormon Church and its bishops specifically were recommending her to members all up and down the I-15 corridor here in Utah. So in fact, Jesse reported that the #1 payer of Jodi's bills when Jesse was inappropriately receiving therapy from their aunt, but also working for Jodi, Jodi Hildebrandt reported that the #1 payer of Jodi Hildebrandt's bills was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormon Church.
All right, Dr. Carol Lieberman, this seems to be a toxic mixture of some I don't want to call it counseling, but she's taking these people in, couples, she's labeling people as sex addicts, she's breaking up families. What's the level of damage that is being done here, Dr. Lieberman?
seems clear that there were so many people damaged by her manipulative tactics. I mean, one thing this shows is that you have to be really careful who you go to when, you know, whether it's a psychiatrist or psychologist or a counselor. You know, if you have a feeling that they're manipulating you, you have to get out right away. But this is a story of two peas in a pod in terms of Ruby and Jodi. You know, both really disturbed individuals who found each other, and it's a folie à deux. But, you know, in addition to the issues related to the church, I can't really speak too much to that. But what I can say is it's my understanding that part of the reason why she manipulated these couples to separate was because she wanted to have an intimate relationship with the wives, including Ruby.
There's a bombshell. Caitlin Becker, have we heard anything about that?
We have, Vinny. When we spoke with Kevin Franke's sisters, one of them intimated to us that they believed, and this is unsubstantiated, but that they believed there was something more going on between Jodi and Ruby. Like I said, unsubstantiated, but I think part of the issues that they were referring to in this case was the amount of time, the sheer amount of time that Jodi and Ruby spent essentially cohabitating, both in Ruby's home and in Jodi's home, always struck them as being a little bit off-putting. The sisters also said that they saw the problems really begin in the Franke family once Jodi entered the situation, separated them, and effectively estranged Kevin Franke from Ruby.
I mean, the level, you know, I was prepared tonight, but I wasn't exactly prepared for everything that I'm hearing here. All right, everyone stay with us. Please stay with us. When we come back, we'll take you deeper inside the Franke family and an interesting moment involving Dad, Kevin Franke, and the interaction with their daughter. Some bizarre stuff. Could be more of the damage of what happened here.
A Wisconsin woman accused of killing her friend with eye drops.
And then defrauding her for over $250,000.
The state believes this defendant has evidenced her capacity to take advantage of at-risk individuals.
Was the victim trying to commit suicide?
Or was she murdered for money?
The Eye Drops murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Explain to me again why this was not robbery.
Because it's a civil issue. You guys are family. She's been in the house before. You haven't been in the house in a year. She had interest in the items. She didn't take them with the intention to deprive you of them. So theft, that's the theft code. We have to prove intent to deprive you of the items. And that wasn't her intent in having them. So the detective sergeant said that we're not going to charge her for anything.
To do some more research on that. You're welcome to do that. If you want to follow up with our detective, do yourself. Okay.
Bizarre moment. That's Ruby's husband, Kevin. I guess they're not living together, estranged husband. I don't know exactly what's going on in their relationship right now. But they're speaking to police about trying to get their daughter arrested for going back to their home and taking some of her stuff. Wanted her arrested for robbery. Officer said no, it's a civil matter. Family matter. Get rid of it. Let's bring back in our guests, Dr. John DeLynn, Caitlin Becker, Dr. Carol Lieberman, Adam Steed, all with us. Adam, do we know anything about Jodi Hildebrandt? Like, was she ever married? Does she have children? What's her background, if we know?
Yeah. So 2 things that stand out is her brother's an attorney and Jodi is like a courtroom attorney. And second, she had, I believe, 2 children. She lost full custody of them in this crazy, messy divorce in the 4th District Court. And then in 2012, right after I got her in trouble, the 4th District Court immediately sealed her case so that nobody could see into it.
Interesting.
And she also has she's got 2 counseling degrees that I'm not the professional. I think they're not the kind you're supposed to do direct counseling with. I think they're like experimental research and something else. Arguably, she might not even be ethically qualified to be a counselor, was what I've heard. But yeah, imagine some person losing her kids in a terribly destructive divorce, and then having that case sealed right after she, but imagine that lady in the room with parties involved, let loose with people doing experimental psychology on them.
Unreal.
And formulating methodology, and it's insane, because for her it's just another patient. For us, it's our entire lives. It's everything that matters to us. And the funny that video where they were accusing a daughter of stealing stuff. It's interesting because when I was falsely accused of 4 felony charges by the 4th District Court I'm not allowed to. So back up and pretend I didn't say that.
We didn't hear it. I didn't hear anything, Adam.
It was all thrown out of court. But anyway, I was 30 minutes late, and I got thrown in jail for 2 weeks when I should have been in finals. And I meet this guy in jail who tells me about this horrific story of this nice businessman, family, kids, everything's horrific story about this therapist, and how he was in jail for violating a protective order when he went to get to the storage unit because he thought he was supposed to pick some of his stuff up in his divorce. Turns out we both had Jodi Hildebrandt for a therapist. We both had like 10 different variables, like A, B, C, D, E, G, matching exactly with how we had got from living normal lives to being in jail that day. Unreal. And they involved like everything from the original stuff of just being in the counseling was like the first couple of variables. And all of the other things that happened that were similar, the same was the divorce proceedings for this guy, or the family involved, the way that protective orders were used, eerily similar of Jodi's talking about boundaries and violations.
Right.
It's just the setup kind of stuff and how someone got snagged and how that just, in Utah law, that made them look, if they were guilty of that, that was domestic violence. And it just added more language onto reinforcement for these crazy claims that Jodi had systematically. In fact, if you want to know what I think, when you played that commercial of Jodi talking about reality, just play the opposite game. Say there's confusion everywhere. Just say whatever she says, say the opposite, and then you'll understand what was really going on.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, how difficult is it for someone to counsel couples when they've been through the whole process themselves of being divorced, losing custody of your children, and now you're counseling couples, and it seems like the first thing you do is separate the couples?
Yeah, right. To copy what just happened to you. I mean, there are sometimes for therapists, if they have undergone some kind of life traumas or life experiences and so on, sometimes if they come out of it having learned something, they can actually be more helpful to other couples. But this sounds like it was such a destructive, sort of out of control divorce and so on, and she lost custody. How could she be telling other people how to take care of their children and how to have a good marriage and so on when hers seems to have been such a disaster? So it can go either way, and hers certainly seems to have turned her not to be able to be a good therapist. She's trying to work out her own issues. That often happens too, that if a therapist doesn't understand, doesn't get counseling themselves, and doesn't get over whatever it is that the experience was, then they keep working out their own issues through the patients that they counsel.
Dr. John Dehlin, how is all of this playing in the Mormon community? Like the Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke drama now. I mean, they're both locked up, charged with serious allegations of aggravated child abuse.
What we're finding is because the Mormon Church 10 or 20 years ago decided to pathologize healthy, normative sexual behavior, we're finding that an entire cottage industry of unethical, abusive therapists have sprung up all along Utah and Idaho and Arizona. And what's really bizarre is that so many of these therapists, if you just Google Maurice Harker, Jodi Hildebrandt, Tom Harrison, you'll find several therapists that are now being charged with abuse, with sexually abusing patients and clients, with deeply unethical behavior. There's something about a culture that that pathologizes healthy sexual normal behavior, and then prohibits any therapist to work with Mormon clients who are committed to their ethical code, but instead only refer from their bishops to members, therapists that are going to use their religious dogmatic kind of extreme religious ideology as the basis for their therapy. What that appears to produce is an entire cottage industry of abusive, unethical therapists. And it seems like every month across Utah, there's a new Mormon therapist that bishops were referring their own, ward members to, who it turns out were not only calling normative behavior sex addiction, but they were also privately sexually abusing their clients. So sexual repression, religious sexual oppression and suppression, and ethical therapy, they just don't mix.